Hey everybody, it's JR and welcome to the Artistry of Money. You know, sometimes when I get together with my favorite peeps, especially these two peeps, Karen Michaels and Todd Vigiletti, we can talk for hours about money and cover a lot of topics. So we want to cut these long videos down into short videos with specific lessons. And this lesson is about dollar cost averaging. Hope you enjoy it. If you do, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. And most of all, if you know somebody who can benefit from this content, please feel free to hit the share button and send it to them. Hope you enjoy
I
it.
don't know what dollar cost averaging.
Yeah. So people, when people start to invest, one of the first things they always get concerned about is timing the market. Like, oh my God, the market's high, it's going to crash. I'm not investing right now.
Right.
And the truth is that nobody knows what the market's going to do. So I have a story of that I'll share. It's a great story. So remind me when I finish the story to get back to what I was explaining.
Okay.
So when the Getty Center opened, the big Getty Center in Bel Air in the hills of Brentwood, they're a private fund. The Getty Fund is private, and they don't have to share their information with anybody. But they did, in celebration of opening that Getty Center, they did a series of interviews with the LA Times, the CFO of the Getty Foundation. And one of the stories he tells the reporter at the LA Times is about when they asked the CEO of Merrill Lynch to join their board. And he joined the board, and at the time, Merrill Lynch was the largest brokerage firm in the world. It was very well respected. It was very large. And this CEO was a really big guy on Wall Street. He knew Wall Street backward and forward. That was what he breathed and ate. And so he immediately advised the fund that, hey, the market's really high right now. We should come up with some products for you that are going to protect you in case the market goes down. This is kind of a long story, but I'll give you the short version right now. Go right to the conclusion, which was they ended up spending $250 million on products that didn't do what they were supposed to do because the market didn't do what the CEO of Merrill Lynch said it was going to do. And the CFO learned a very important lesson from that. And this is the part that I want everybody to hear. The lesson was, if the CEO of Merrill Lynch doesn't know what the market's going to do, nobody knows what the market's going to do. So all these people that you watch on, if you read people on in the Wall Street Journal or Barron's, or you watch CNBC or Fox News Business, they all talk about what the market's going to do. And they all talk like they know what's going to happen. They are predicting what they think is going to happen. But let me tell you, without any doubt at all, let me tell you with 100% certainty, none of them know what the market's going to do. They're only giving you their opinion about what they think the market's going to do. And a lot of them are in marketing mode. They're in the mode of marketing their expertise. And so they want to sound good, like I know what's going to happen and I'm going to tell you what to do, just like that CEO of Merrill Lynch. But the truth is, always remember the truth. No one knows. So if you don't know what the market's going to do, how do you know when it's time to put your money into the market, when there's a good time? And the answer is, you need to put it in over time. And dollar cost averaging is a way that you put a set amount of money into the market at a set period of time, at a set interval, like once a month or once a quarter, over years and years. And so it takes away the effect of timing the market. When the market goes up, you've got stocks that are doing well. When the market goes down and you continue to put money in, your money's buying more stocks. So, right, if you think about stocks as the price of a piece of a company, right? Let's just pick a company like McDonald's. I'm not endorsing that you invest in McDonald's, but I just picked a company off the top of my head. If your dollar buys you a share of McDonald's now and the stock market goes down a lot, and you put another dollar in, maybe your dollar is going to buy 1.5 shares of McDonald's because the price went down.
Right.
So that's really, as an investor, you want the market to go down, especially as a young investor. If I'm 20 years old right now and I have a whole lifetime of investing in front of me, I want the market to crash right now because my money's going to go so much further. Does that make sense?
Right.
So it's kind of like the Nordstrom's half yearly sale.
Okay,
I mean,
how?
right?
I don't understand. Tell me.
Okay. because instead of buying the designer gown at
Yeah.
full
Full price.
retail,
Yeah.
I'm going to get it at this one-time price. And so now I have this fabulous dress, right? I mean,
And
so is
maybe
that,
in your
but
case,
I'm making a joke, but am I right? Is it, it's
well,
like that?
I think it would be correct if you purchased 2 gowns for the price of 1 at the half yearly sale. So you actually got more gowns for your money.
Thank you for
Yeah.
understanding me.
Yes.
And the other difference that's important is the half yearly sale, you know when it's going to happen, right?
Yes.
When Wall Street has a sale, you have no idea when it's going to happen. That's why investing a set amount of money at a set interval in time, that same amount of money, let's say $1,000 a month, investing $1,000 a month over the next several years is really going to do well for you, because whenever the market goes down, your $1,000 is going to buy more. It's going to buy you 2 gowns from Nordstrom instead of 1, right?
So here's if I could just interject a question. Let's a hypothetical scenario. Let's say I had I'll call it a windfall of $10,000. Would it make more sense to take that 10,000 and put it all in now, or would it make more sense to take advantage of dollar cost averaging, to say I'm going to put whatever percentage, let's say half of that in, and then put another $400 a month in for the rest of the year because of the fluctuation in the market and so on and so forth? Or is it better just, if I know I got the 10, put the 10 in? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
It's a fabulous question, Todd, because it really depends on knowing yourself. What are you going to do if let's say you have $10,000 and you decide that you want to put it all in the market? Are you disciplined enough if you decide to put $1,000 a month in for the next 10 months? Are you disciplined not to spend that money that's sitting waiting to be invested? Because if you really are going to follow the plan, that's not a bad plan. Put $1,000 a month in every month for the next 10 months. Your 10,000 is fully invested. You try to avoid any market swings. That's a very smart way to do it. Okay. If, on the other hand, you are a person who's tempted by Nordstrom half yearly sales, for example, I don't know why that comes to mind, but you're tempted by Prada handbags, and oh my God, now I can get the one I've always wanted. If you're that person, and so you're going to put $1,000 in and spend the other 9, then you're better off putting all 10 in right at the beginning and taking access of the money away from yourself.
So it's more of a self-control issue than if you have the control. It sounds like it's better to to wait, and also just depending upon, I guess, how much you have at once. So
that's right. But that's a windfall question, and that's a great question, because you should think about how to invest a windfall.
And I think that really is so applicable to performers, because and Jim, I know you and I have talked about this, but we, I guess you were saying it's really not a windfall, but for those of us who have the feast or famine kind of income, where sometimes, I mean, you both know I booked a great gig last month, and so that was really exciting. And this month is like, it's spring break and I'm waiting and what's happening. And so that kind of thing happens a lot in performer land and in self-employed land. So I love the idea of, I mean, and I think, may I ask, like, in my mind, in all seriousness, to me, I guess I want to have like an emergency fund and then do my small investing as well, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. You should have an emergency fund. So an emergency fund is a separate idea. It's not really investing for the future. An emergency fund is exactly what the name implies. It's in case your car breaks down or your refrigerator conks out. If you don't have any money, it's going to go on a credit card, or if you don't have space on the credit card, what are you going to do? I mean, that's what an emergency fund is for. Investing for the future is about thinking about having a good quality of life after your active employment years are over. And I do want to talk about your idea, Karen, about feast or famine income, because I think it's a really important one. In my previous career, for about 10 years, I worked very closely with growers. And they they make money exactly in that way. Sometimes, so let's be a little specific and talk about, I got to know a lot of wine growers, a lot of grape growers for wine, and some of them own their own vineyards, and they are so weather dependent. It's crazy.
Gosh,
You can have, for those of you who don't know anything about growers or about agriculture, when you think agriculture, when you think farmers, think weather, because their whole livelihood depends on the regularity of weather.
Yeah.
And when there are unusual weather patterns, it can wipe out their income instantly. They can have a freeze that kills all of their grapes for that year. And that crop of grapes are not going to be sold for wine. Hopefully there still is kind of like enough of a good enough grade to do something for, table grapes or something like that, where they can sell them for a lower price. And sometimes they can't sell them for anything at all because they're completely dead because of weather. So they have to deal with the same kind of issues that artists have to deal with. When you book a gig and the gig lasts a year, and in that year you make $1 million, and then the gig is over and that $1 million income is stopped. If you've spent all that money and lived high on the hog, what happens when let me just say, it's really easy to raise your standard of living when you have the money, when you have the means to do it. And it's really, really torture to go down.
Yeah.
So what growers do is they try to plan and try to live their life in a very even keel way, that when they have years of abundance, they put it away. And they invest for the future. And then years when they have nothing or they have less, they're okay, because they not only have that emergency fund, but they have put some aside for those years where they're going to have a lot less. So artists have to do the same thing if they want to avoid living this feast and famine sort of lifestyle, which can be really tough, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, one year you buy a new car and you want to buy a new house and you want to go on vacations and do all this stuff. And then a couple years later, you are sitting at home and you're going to sell your car and you're going to sell your house and move down to a smaller house. It's tough to move down. So the way to avoid that is to think like a farmer and think about living more modestly and putting some of the money away, not spending it all. And another thing that comes to mind is, this happens a lot to child stars, right? We've all heard the stories about these child actors who make millions of dollars. And when they grow up, they're working as a barista at Starbucks or whatever. We know these stories, or they're drug addicts, but they have nothing, right? And it's so sad. And it's because they don't understand. They don't think about, and as children, how could they, right? But their parents also didn't do a good job of thinking about planning and thinking about the future. And for artists, it's even more acute, I would say, than it is for other professions, because of the disparity. When you're working, you can make $20 million a year, and when you're not working, you can make nothing. So how does that work? How do you live like that?
Right.
And the answer is really planning and putting aside and being reasonable with your expenditures when things are good.
Right, exactly. Which is tough. I like what you said about it. It's easy to move up in class and stature, but it's really hard to move down, especially when you feel that you have no choice in doing so. So I definitely appreciate that. So it's all about living within your means and doing the smart things with your money when you get it. And that's what we're all just trying to get through. And obviously currently, so many people, even people who planned well, depending upon where they were on their financial journey with the pandemic that we're hopefully starting to come out of. I think even some of the best laid plans and people who thought they did great are probably feeling a little, whether it's depressed or dejected or worried now, because if you were on your way up the ladder, I mean, from a security standpoint, in that you were saving properly, or what we consider properly, you had your emergency fund, but that emergency fund probably wasn't a 13-month fund. I don't know I can't think of anybody who's said, most people say 6 months, some people say only 3 months, some people say 6 months. Every once in a while you'll hear a year, but that it's not, I don't think, the norm. But
Right.
now I think maybe that should become the norm. Well,
Yeah.
I think you're right.
you want to have a year's worth of at least your basic expenses, if at all possible, in something that's accessible and easy to get to. And
Yeah,
I don't
that's
think
exactly
anybody's
right, Todd. This pandemic has been, no one could possibly have seen it coming, right? So this was really, hopefully, only a once in a lifetime kind of an event.
Yeah.
But a lot of people were planning and doing everything right, and they still got really hit hard, and they're in a different situation right now where they're really worried, and it's just really a tough situation. But to your question about how much emergency fund you should put away, so the other thing to think about is thinking about not only what your expenses are going to be per month and per year, right? But it's also how often do you get gigs? I mean, if you're a good regular gig booker, and over the last few years you've got a pattern, and I can be dry for a couple of months, but then I'll get a couple after that, and you can kind of count on that. That's kind of easier to plan with. But the bigger people who make the bigger money, so I'm going to just say like a Hollywood star or producer or something, right? That when you get something picked up, like a television producer or a television star, when you get something picked up, you can have a lot of money. But then when that ends, let's say it goes for 3 seasons, then it ends, it can be years before you have another
big one,
good gig like that. So that means you've got to have more put away when you know that, you know what I mean? Some people who are getting the small jobs, that's easier to plan for. But the ones that are having the bigger jobs, and that's what you're looking for, stars don't want to, like, let's say B-list stars, they don't want to take D-list jobs, right? So they turn down a lot of work. And
well, that's why I'm here. I'm here to take the D-list jobs off the plate, so those folks don't feel like they gotta take them. You know what I mean? I'm really helping to support them while supporting
Todd,
myself.
you're actually a top tier D-list.
Well, thanks. I'm a D plus. I'm a D plus.
Oh my gosh, this was so an incredible conversation.
For sure.
So helpful. Friends, by the way, we'll put as many links of things that we talked about in the description, and you can reach out to us through our email. You can put comments on our channel, and we'll try to answer them as best we can and as quickly as we can, because it's just, this is just so important. That's how our conversations began, because Todd and I were asking Jim, who is our longtime friend and so smart with all of these things, oh my gosh, what should we do, and how, what are your thoughts about this? And that's how this channel began, I guess. Right? So
thanks for joining us, everybody. It's now time for JR's Golden Nugget. I'm going to make today's Golden Nugget about dollar cost averaging. So this is the idea of putting the same amount of money, a fixed amount of money, into a retirement type account, into some sort of investment account at a fixed interval over time, whether it's once a week, once a month, once a quarter. So regardless of the amount, right? If you're putting in $100, let's say a month, or $1,000 a month, that's great. I actually have a doctor friend who's contributing $10,000 a month into his retirement account. So just to let you know, this dollar cost averaging is applicable to any amount of money. Whatever you can do, it's going to benefit your retirement. And I think we talked about quality of retirement enough to know that if you really desire to have a nice high quality of life in retirement, that this is something you should think about. Anything else to add, Todd or Karen? Thank you so much for joining me today.
No, I think that was great. Like you said, we covered so many things, and that is a great way to at least really focus on one of the points out of the many that we made today, and look forward to digging deeper into all the other subjects we talked about today.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us, everyone. It was super fun to talk about.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
See you on the next episode.